All right, today is March the 4th, 2023, and today we're here with Tom Scherlen, who's running for City Council Place 3.
Correct.
Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dan, giving us the opportunity to get here together to visit like we did 2 years ago.
Let's start off by telling the voters why they should vote for you.
I believe when looking back through my work history, my career, going all the way back to high school, I have proven leadership from my young age in high school. We had a junior achievement type program and we made companies up. And my company was called Killico in high school. I was elected president of the company, and that year we won Best Company of the Year. We made the most profit. Going on into college, I was in many clubs and things, and I was always elected president. I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. I was chief of the Order of the Arrow Lodge in the North Texas Panhandle area, northeast side. Then I went into my work career, which I worked 38 and a half years for Austin Hose, which used to be Austin Distributing and Manufacturing. I worked myself up from the bottom all the way to the top. I went from answering a phone, sweeping floors in the warehouse, to being CEO when I retired. So I feel like I have the leadership skills to carry the city forward. I've learned a lot through business by negotiations, learning how to negotiate a good deal, recognizing a good deal from a bad deal, learning how to make a profit when profits were hard to be made. I looked at employees, learned how to treat people. I found out real quick in my career, people are what make a company. They're the same ones that will make your city. One of the things I hear continuously while out on the campaign trail, I keep hearing the city isn't friendly. They're not user friendly. And I think we could work with that and work harder to get it more to the liking of the constituents within the city. So I believe by far I have a better qualifications than either of the other two candidates running for place 3.
So, what are the top, say, 3 or 4 things that you think the city faces right now that the voters are concerned with and want change?
One of the number one things I see that we need to do as a city council, we need to look into public safety. It's a very big issue right now in Amarillo. In fact, Amarillo is in the top 5 of the most crime-ridden cities in Texas. And Amarillo, as we look at back 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have a criminal problem. We heard about a few murders a year, 5 or 6. Now we're hearing of shootings almost every day, with murders at least maybe once or twice. Plus, our crime is up, whether it be robbery, theft from cars, or harassment, whatever. Our crime in Amarillo has really, really grown. Now, when you look at the statistics produced by the federal government and the statistics provided by Amarillo itself, Amarillo, they say there is I think it was 14% improvement this year over last year. But in reality, if you want to look at the records from the state side and the national side, Amarillo exceeds all the averages for crime. And we need to look at that. Plus, also, we need to look at our first responders as far as fire. There are areas in town that it takes over 15 minutes to react to an emergency call. This is really unacceptable. We need to have the first responders be there within, I'd say, as short a time as possible. If you look out on the north side of Amarillo, we really don't have hardly any fire stations. And we really need one in North Amarillo, whether it be in the Heights or a little bit further east. But we really do need to increase the fire department's response time. We need more firefighters. We need more police officers. And what I'm talking about here is spending money. And sometimes we wonder where the money comes from. That's another one of the issues I'd like to bring up. I am looking at being a physical conservative, and I would like to look at everything where the money is actually going. It seems to me that when you have a $500 million budget, I want to know where that money is going, because it seems like we don't have money to do streets. We've got to have special bond elections to do streets. We have to have special bond elections to get just about anything done. So, as I've been studying over the last few months of the budget of Amarillo, which in itself is about 800 pages long, I've gone through and I've seen areas I would like to see that possibly we could cut some of these budgets back. You know, bureaucracies do not work like business. When a business tries to cut back or save money, they are very efficient in the way they do things. A bureaucracy always spends more and more and more. If you look at, they put up a budget every year, and they're going to put out a budget, and to them, to their way of thinking in the bureaucracy of government, we need to spend every dime we have so I can get more next year. So I would like to see us set up a situation that maybe people might get bonuses or something if they didn't spend all the money. That if we went in and looked how we're spending it, why we're spending it, there's a lot of questions I would like to ask while preparing a budget. I know when I ran the company, we looked at budgets very close. And we would look at the budget, we would make a budget, we worked within our budget. Now, there are times that you've got to amend your budget or change your budget, and I understand those as well. But I believe there is money within our budget now. I don't think we have a taxing problem. I think we have a spending problem. And that's what I'd like to address when we go into a new budget is, how do we spend the money that the taxpayers of Amarillo give to the city? And that's one thing I'd like to look at. Another thing, when we really get down to it, I want to create a representative type of government, a government by the people, for the people. As we saw in this last year, the city went against the voters, or the city council, for the most part, a 4-1 vote, went against the voters of Amarillo. And in so doing, I think we have created a confidence problem in our local government. We're going to take years and years to build back that trust that the citizens once gave the city. So I would like to, if I'm elected, and even if I'm not elected, I'm going to be going out, talking to neighborhoods, trying to find out what we need, when we need it, and how come we need it. I think, as it's well said in Amarillo, you go out and they say, well, we see everybody every 2 years, because that's when you run for election. So everybody gets out and they go out and talk to them. After the election, I think attitude changes to some extent. Whereas I would like to be that person who is going to be there, the person you can call and talk to. I mean, it's like right now, I've got my personal cell number out to everybody. I mean, it's on my website. Anything you go, I'll put my personal. You can call me. You can talk about anything, complain, gripe, or even give praises where it need to be. But that is what we need to do, is government by the people, for the people. And when I say for the people, I want to give the citizens more time at the city council meetings to talk. Right now, we limit people to 3 minutes. if I'm elected, I wouldn't mind making myself available the whole morning of city commission meeting to listen to the citizens. I mean, we can sit and have a cup of coffee or sit there in City Hall and discuss issues before the meeting. Because I think every citizen has a right to have an opportunity to express their desires to each and every city councilman.
Well, that sounds good. So it appears to me that, and I have tried to give the city, I've given them numerous ideas how they could save millions of dollars and with zero effort, but nobody seems interested.
I have had the same response. I have sent emails. I made phone calls. I've tried to get in front of somebody to explain. And I was told by the mayor last time I ran 2 years ago that you can't run a city like a business. And I wondered why you can't, because I do realize that when President Trump ran for the presidency of the United States and was elected, our country was flat, going out full blast. We were hitting on every cylinder the country had, and that's what shows you what can happen when you try to run a country like a business. And that's the same way we can do it. See, I understand there's certain laws we can't do and certain things you can do, but the closer we get it to emulate a business, the better we're going to have a well-ran city that is run economically and not run on waste.
Well, to me, it would be easier to run a city than a business because you have the power to tax and you don't have to make a profit.
You got it. And
so how hard can that be?
Well, evidently it's real hard because they're always needing more money.
Well,
So,
I think the problem is that we get people into these positions who are not, and I'm going to blame the political parties because they have not done their job to engage the voters, in my opinion. And so the voters don't really know what to do. And then more than the political parties, the media. They don't inform the voters about what's going on about local issues very well. And so that's got to change. And then it's really the responsibility then of the citizens to be involved. So we need to come up with a solution in a way to make that easy for the citizens to keep up with what's going on in their community so they can have input. And that's hard. But we're working on that. But then, so to me, it's about community and responsibility. So the citizens have to be responsible, and our elected officials have to listen to the citizens and do what the citizens want. But that's the problem with republics. They have failed every time because I think the same thing happens at the local level, the city, the county, the national, where people become complacent, and then a group of wealthy people fund people they want because they want to control what's going on in the city because they think they know what's best, not the citizens, but them. And then pretty soon you have a very few people that are running everything. And then they get greedy. And then they start self-serving. And it's just a process. It's kind of the natural order of things. So it's our responsibility as voters to keep that from happening by being engaged and to not let a few take over. So, but there's, you take a city the size of Amarillo and the location of Amarillo, I would think we would just have just phenomenal potential.
I agree. I think we have gotten in our own way many times. And we tend to look, we want to be a Dallas in appearance, but we don't actually let go of the power. We keep the power of the city within a 10 square block area downtown.
Yeah.
And the city needs to be represented from the outward in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I was in business, I learned real quick. I used to make a lot of trips. I'd fly into San Antonio or Wichita, Kansas, and I'd go in the front door, and I'm greeted there by my manager, and everything's good, great, we love it, everything's going fantastic. Well, after a few times like that, I decided I started going in the back door, and I'd go through where all the workers were. And then by the time I got to the front, I really knew how that branch was running, because the worker bees would tell you it wasn't always good. It's not always great. Sometimes there were problems. And once we knew a problem, and this is what I want to bring to the city council, we figure out a problem. If we know the problem, we can solve the problem. It's every time you have a negativity, you have a way of making a positivity out of it. Because once I identify, I can address the issue, we can fix it for the betterment of the community. It's like, in my opinion, this trash crisis we had over the summer. In the business world, you would have seen that coming once you saw one driver leaving, then another driver, and all of a sudden you don't have enough drivers to maintain your trash schedule. In business, once I lost the first one, I would go, well, why did we lose our driver? What was the cause? Once you figure out your cause, you start addressing, how do we fix this? And in so doing, you fix it so that you don't get to the crisis mode. You get to where you're putting new drivers because you found out what the problem is. Once they figured out the problem, we got it fixed again, didn't we? But it took them too long to determine what the problem is. And that goes strictly back to one thing. It was bad management. And that is where we need to really address and look at everything. If elected, I'll put it to you this way, Dan. If elected, everything's on the table. We've got to look at everything. We can't pick and choose the flowers and they look great. We got to pick up the trash that's around, and we've got to look at the trash. What causes that problem? How do we fix that problem? What is the solution? These are the things we've got to, the things that bother people and the things that people complain about are the things that affect the life in Amarillo the most. And these are the things that need to be addressed. These are the things we've got to work hard as a community and reach out into the community, getting their ideas, their suggestions. And you don't get their suggestions when you only allow them to talk 3 minutes at a meeting. Now, I do know at all the meetings, they say, well, you can call any of us anytime. Well, I've called. I've left messages. I've only had one council person call me back. That's the problem. If they look at your name or they look at you, they've determined whether they want to talk to you or not. And I think that's where I want to talk to the ones that are going to give me the hardest time, because that's the ones I need to fix first. Like the old saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Well, and I think people need to understand that calling up with a problem is one thing, but if you want to be effective, you need to call your councilman with a solution.
I agree.
And then let that councilman hash that out. and try to get it done and help him and work together. And that's how we get things done.
I agree 100% completely.
You know, the problem you have with some people is they just want to complain.
I agree there.
But they're a very, very, very tiny minority. And those are what you hear. But the solutions, like you say, come from the people. And I proposed a long time ago. I said, why don't you just, I would sub out the trash. I would look at that. There's numerous good trash companies here in town. I sub out mine, and I have a pretty big area, and I wouldn't think about handling the trash myself. But have 5 or 6 vendors, and that way you always have backup in case something happens to one of them. Somebody else could take it over, and I would think that they could do it just as efficiently as the city.
I actually believe private enterprise can do things better.
But why does the city want to maintain all those trucks and dumpsters and trash containers and employees and welders and mechanics that you would need to have?
Mm-hmm.
It'd save the city a fortune and let the businesses can innovate quick.
Correct. And you really wouldn't lose employment. You would
you'll
transition.
Gain it.
You would transition
because employment from a city is negative, but with private business it's positive because that's producing more wealth outside of government that supports the tax base.
Correct.
The government's a drag on the economy. They do not provide jobs. Nope. That job that city provides is a drag on the community. But if one of the waste companies provides it, it's a benefit.
I've noticed I think about the past year that they've contracted out some of the parks to private enterprise to take care of some of our parks.
Yeah.
And I've noticed those parks that are taken care of by private enterprise are kept up a lot better than the parks kept up by the city.
Mm-hmm.
Because private enterprise, that guy knows that if he doesn't do a good job, he's not going to have a job. So he's going to do the very best he can do. Whereas when you have an employee working for you from a city standpoint, they do what they got to do to get through the day.
Yeah, it's a different mindset because they know they're not going to probably get promoted or get their own crew or whatever. But I mentioned that in the last election. I said, why don't you sub out all the parks, let people just draw for them because there's so many landscape companies out there, hundreds of them, and let them compete and then have a contest to where people could vote on the best kept park, and that'd be phenomenal advertising for that vendor.
Yeah.
And you could probably get them to do it very inexpensively that way. And it would be kind of a community event. And then you wouldn't have to maintain all those mowers, sharpen blades, work on engines, changing oil, replacing air filters and fuel filters every day. What a nightmare.
Oh, I agree. Good example of what we're talking about, Dan, is last year during the school bond election. I was very active, and I've heard this feedback to me here lately since I've been running. They're saying, Tom's against Amarillo Public Schools. No, Tom's not against Amarillo Public Schools. Yeah. I was against a bond issue that was 95% for things. Had nothing to do with students. Now, to prove some of my points, here's one thing. They were going to tear down Austin Middle School and rebuild it for $65 million. Well, I oppose that very strongly. It came out, and you can read the Amarillo Globe News. I think it's about a month ago now. There was an article in the paper. It said the Amarillo School District fixed Austin Middle School for a little over $300,000. So in other words, we saved $64,700,000. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to bring to the city as well as when we fought the Amarillo bond issue. Mm-hmm. Then it wasn't last week, I believe, the school district board meeting. They had a meeting. They said they were putting in the new air conditioning in all the gyms, and they're doing it from money that was saved for that project. Now, if everybody remembers, that was part of one of the bond issues was to do that. But here again, they didn't need the money. They had the money. So that's what happens a lot of times when we create bureaucracy, whether it be government, school districts, or whatever. We create a bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy, they have wants and needs. Now, as a individual, I have the same needs at my house, whether it be a plumbing problem, a foundation. We all go out and fix it. We get it taken care of, and we do the upkeep to keep what we need done. Whereas if you look at a city, I've had more people say, well, the city lets things fall down around them. I know here a while back they were talking about wanting to spend more money on the parks, and we needed all new equipment everywhere. Well, I went out and made some park visits myself. I took some pictures on myself, and I determined, yeah, we need some paint here. We probably need a little welding over here. Everything wasn't falling apart. Not like we were led to believe.
Yep.
It needed some work. I'll agree to that. Well, let's get the money together instead of spending however many millions they were going to spend. Let's spend what we need to spend and then keep it up. That's the main thing, is keeping up what we're doing and doing inspections the way we need to be done.
Yeah, preventive maintenance, maintaining what you have. It's hard. And so they don't do it. It's easier to let them fall apart and just go call a contractor and build me a new building.
Correct.
Kind of like what they're doing with City Hall.
I mean, that another thing I had a person tell me about. See, it was a great idea. We're building the new City Hall, which they're already doing that, and they're spending, I think it was close to $35 million. And then they're going to tear down the old City Hall. And I have a problem tearing down the old City Hall. You know, there's so many things we could use that building for, but they have it in their mind that's where they want to put a Coliseum. Well, I don't know why it has to go there. I don't know why we couldn't put it on the north end.
Because it's the most illogical place to put it.
That's right. We could put it anywhere downtown, whether it be across the street there, and we could do the same thing without tearing down a building. Now, if we're going to have this excess building here, there's a lot of things in the community we could do with that building. I mean, we could.
Well, is there a way that if you get elected and get some other like-minded people elected, could you stop the construction of that new City Hall?
That would be, I don't know if we could. It would depend upon how far down the road they already are on that building. And that would be the thing we would need to research is how far down that road are we?
Because I think the first thing I do is stop that project and say, we have a perfectly good building. And in fact, with technology and stuff that's out there today, you need fewer people. So they should have excess room. They shouldn't need more room. Mm-hmm. I see that in my business because I've been able to go to the cloud and efficiencies with software and stuff. So I don't have to have near as many accounting clerks and people in my actual office as I used to have.
Correct.
So, look at efficiencies there. I think from what I hear from the voters is that they just are appalled that the city got by with that. And if Alex Fairley hadn't stepped up, they'd be on the hook for $260 more million.
Correct.
And the taxpayers are going to have to pay for that. They haven't gotten that bill yet.
Correct. And as things goes and as time goes, we've got to put a stop to just frivolous spending. We have spending that's just out of control. This is where our conservative viewpoints and values come in. It's like Tom Scherlen's not against schools. Tom Scherlen is for schools.
We want excellent schools with excellent academics, and we don't care about having super fancy facilities.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, you get by, I know in my work history, you get what you need on a warehouse. I mean, we built warehouses, and we put into warehouses what we needed. We didn't need that warehouse to look like a chrome-plated Cadillac.
Yeah.
All I needed that warehouse to do was store merchandise that we could work out of. That's what we did. You didn't have to have the Cadillacs. You went middle of the road or lower.
Well, you just want something that's going to be easy to maintain and last.
Correct. That's where we spend a lot of money on cosmetics, okay? And there's a lot of things that we do for cosmetics. And it's like right now the city had that ordinance about putting in so many trees for every parking place or whatever. Well, you see these people that put in the grass, they put in the trees, they didn't water or couldn't water, and now the water's so high. Do we really want to do that? Do we want to maintain those kind of atmosphere? Makes the city look good, yes. But where we're putting them, people really don't see them because they're not by the highways.
They're in the way. Then they got sap on your car when you come out.
Correct.
So then you're using more water to wash your car and get the sap off the windshield. And they're complaining about water usage, but they're creating a huge demand. And then the trees break off in the ice storm, and then they've shut down their brush sites, so they don't have any place to take them once they fall down. So, I mean, trees. I kind of like living where there's very few trees myself.
Well, you can see better.
I can see, and they're not in my way. But we're joking here, but it's just kind of the hypocrisy of the government sometimes creates situations that doesn't make any sense, and all it does is cost people a lot of money.
Agreed.
And it's certainly not efficient. So I'd rather have a parking space than a tree if I'm trying to do business downtown. Let people plant trees in their yard.
Correct.
Where they belong, so they can enjoy them, sit under them, and enjoy the shade. But I don't think downtown's a place for trees.
That's right. I mean, when you look at all the money that we have spent in downtown Amarillo, and one of the things that we overlook in Amarillo is one of the biggest draws. I've talked to quite a few people. People will come to Amarillo for the Big Texan Steak Ranch, and that's known throughout the world. I mean, I've been in Israel, and I've told the guy, well, I'm from Amarillo, Texas, and his response was 72-ounce steak. That was his response.
Yeah.
The other thing that draws people to Amarillo is our 6th Street. And the city spends very little money on 6th Street. If we had really spent the money we need to spend on 6th Street, it would be a huge draw for visitors. Mm-hmm. I mean, we look at now they're putting the Route 66 insignia on the water tower, but it had to be paid for by the citizens, which I find that criminal almost, whereas it's advertising Amarillo, Texas on Route 66. It's putting you on the map.
Yeah, I mean, Vega's a halfway point on Route 66.
Yeah, and we've got it right here. And if we spent money down there, I think it would actually draw more. I talked to a friend of mine who works at a business where a lot of tourists come in. And he says, I have never had a tourist come in and ask me where downtown was or Hodgetown.
Right.
And I take that back. He said, I did have one, and their son was playing on a team for the baseball. But he says, people will come in and they'll ask a question. Where's the Big Texan Steak Ranch? Where's the Cadillac Ranch? And where's 6th Street? Those are the 3 things, 4 things. And they ask about Palladura Canyon. And these are the things you don't really see them advertised by the city of Amarillo.
Well, every community is unique, and I met with several years ago, and I'm like, railroads are what made Amarillo. You should focus on the railroad history, Paladuro Canyon, the big ranches, and things that are indigenous to our area. Instead, y'all ignore them and act as if none of that exists and think we're Dallas or Frisco.
Correct.
We're not Frisco, Texas. We're Amarillo, Texas, and we should focus on what makes us unique.
We need to stop focusing on big cities and focus on what we really are.
Yeah.
And then I think we need to ask the citizens, what do we want to be? What is our dream? Where do we want to go? You know, we have these plans they put out, and it's very interesting, and I wonder sometimes who was there to put that plan together, because sometimes it makes no sense whatsoever. But when we look back at things like that, Dan, that's where I think we need to involve our citizens more. And what I'm talking about is total open government. I want people to see the council sitting up there on the dais discussing issues. I want those issues to be discussed in front of them.
Exactly.
So that they know that our government is an open government, that we have nothing to hide. You don't come out there to the dais and say, okay, on the agenda it says we're going to have this ordinance, and then all of a sudden we have a council member get up and read a two-page, they call it a two-page motion. Two-page motion. And then they say, all in favor, say aye, and all opposed, same sign. Well, when they have that
discussion,
when they have that written motion there, it tells me that was already decided behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And no matter what the citizens said or what was going to take place, it was already done.
Yeah.
And we need to have open government. Open.
I would think they'd move those city council meetings to a time where the citizens could go, like 6 o'clock in the evening or something.
I agree. And I think we actually need to meet more than every other week, because by every other week you almost are.
I thought they used to meet every week.
They were every week until we had a bond election, which we were able to change it. That was one of the things on the bond that passed.
Okay.
I believe that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, when they were trying to make 4-year terms.
That's correct.
That failed.
Right when we were trying to make 4-year terms. We said no on 4-year terms, but then we said you can meet every other week, which
tells you that they thought the less government is better.
Correct.
Is the way I would read that.
Yep, exactly.
But that doesn't mean that you can't meet once a week. That means that you don't have to meet but once every 2 weeks.
All they've got to meet is 24 times a year.
You could choose to meet 48.
That's right.
Or 58.
Whatever you want to do.
Or every day.
That's right.
So
what I see happening now, a lot of time I think we lose a lot of money on businesses because it takes them too long to approve things.
Yes.
And I'm hearing that while I'm out. It takes too long to get permits. It takes too long to get a building inspected, to get it opened up. And these are the things where we should be ready to go. If a guy calls, says, we're ready for an inspection, I think within 24 hours, you should be able to have an inspection. Because every day that person is waiting to open those doors is a day Amarillo's losing money because we're not collecting the taxes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, very good. It sounds like you have some really good ideas, and you want to represent the interests of the people. And good luck on the campaign trail. And you want to tell the voters where they can get a hold of you, your web address and that sort of thing?
I sure do, Dan. You can go to TomScherlen.com. Spell it all together, TomScherlen.com. That is my website. My phone number is 806-670-6104. I will answer your call anytime. If I'm on the phone, I will call you back. Go to the website. There's a place for you to sign up. You see more about Tom, what I believe in, what I want to do, and the things of how we're going to do it. These are the things. And then I would like you to become part of our team, to be part of Amarillo growing forward. That's what I'm really looking for, is a team that we can work together to make Amarillo grow. Thank you, Dan.
And that's Tom Scherlen, SCHERLEN.
SCHERLEN. Yes, sir.
.com.
You got it.
All right, Tom. Well, we appreciate you coming by, and good luck on the campaign trail. And if I don't see you, I'm sure we'll be seeing you at some forums and
I'm sure of that.
Before then. But Election Day is May 6th. Make sure you're registered to vote if you want to participate in what's going on in Amarillo.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.